Hello everybody, welcome back to our series on National 5 RUAE. I am Miss McCombie, and this week we are moving on to our analysis questions by starting off looking at word choice questions. So let's go. So what do you need to know about word choice questions? Well, they are the first analysis question that we are going to cover in this series. These questions are basically asking you to explain why an author chose to use a particular word or phrase. Authors use our associations with words to make us feel a certain way. The questions are usually worth 2 marks. If they are worth 4 marks, then it means that it wants you to repeat the process. So you need to do it twice and identify 2 words. And the breakdown of those marks is different at National 5 than it is at Higher. So at National 5 you get 1 mark for identifying the word and quoting it. You do not get that at Higher. At Higher it is completely dependent on your ability to explain. This means at National 5 it's something of a gift to get the extra mark. So if you're really panicking and you don't know how to answer that question, quote a word. You might get a mark for it. Before we really get into this, there's 2 important terms that are going to come up again and again. Those are denotation and connotation. A denotation is like the definition or the basic meaning of a word. It's the sort of thing you would find in a dictionary. The connotation, however, is the sort of implication or associations you might have with a particular word. So I've heard people describe it before as denotation being the literal meaning of a word and the connotations being like the emotional meaning of the word. Now, I think a lot of pupils tend to get a bit confused with these, so I'm going to try and avoid using them as much as possible, but they will come up in this video and your teacher might have a way to answer the question that involves these 2 words. Okay, so here's an example just to show you what I mean. So we can take 3 words, for example, extraordinary, strange, and bizarre. All 3 of these words have the same basic denotation. They all mean something unusual. However, the connotations are very different. So, for example, extraordinary means something miraculous. It's something unusual but in a slightly more positive way. Although strange has the same denotation, the connotation is very different. So again, it means something out of the ordinary, but it means something slightly less positive. There's almost a sense of mistrust. If you think about the way you say strange, you're not normally thinking about something that's positive. Okay, for the third one, bizarre. Again, same basic meaning, same denotation, but it means out of the ordinary in a weird way. Something that is slightly more strange or out of the ordinary. Okay, so we've got a positive connotation, a slightly more negative connotation, and a negative connotation. Okay, so they all mean the same thing, but the connotations and the associations with them, the implications are slightly different. As I say, don't get too hung up on connotations and denotations, because some people get so fixated on these 2 ideas that then actually they don't really know how to answer the questions properly. So I'm going to show you a way to answer this question that doesn't involve too much thinking about these 2 words. As with the last few questions, there is a formula you can use to help you answer the questions. Now, I've seen lots of teachers use different ones for this, but I'm going to teach you the simplest one I know, which is word suggests explanation. Okay, so by word I mean the quoted word. Pick the word that answers the question from the passage, and remember you get 1 point at that for National 5. The other part is the explanation, so that's where you get your other mark. And to be clear, this does not mean you give us a definition of the word. That's not what they want. They want you to explain why it is effective. So this is where you talk about the other implications of the word and you try and link it to the question. And this is where you get the other mark, by talking about the connotations and linking it to the question. Make sure that you are actually answering the question. Right, time for a worked example then. So, this is from an article on face mites found in National Geographic. I've put the link down below in the description. So we'll read through it together and then I will show you how to answer it. So, because these mites are so cryptic, most of us will never see one. I hope not only to see my own face mites, but also to learn more about these strange beasts. Now, let's look at the question. Explain how the writer's word choice makes it clear we know very little about face mites. look at how many marks the question is worth. How many examples of word choice do you think we have to find? Okay, well, if it's worth 4 marks, it means we need to find 2 examples of the writer's word choice. Okay, now when it comes to word choice, usually they're looking for just 1 word, but sometimes they'll also look for 2 words, maybe 3, very rarely any more than that. With that in mind, have a look at the passage. Which words do you think would be good to pick? So remember, we're looking for 2 examples, so I would say cryptic would probably be the first one, and the second one would be strange beasts. Okay, remember I said sometimes they look for 2 words together. Exam top tip here, when you're in the exam, remember you can write on the exam paper, so it's maybe worth highlighting or underlining the words that you're going to put in your answer. Once you've picked your words, it's just a matter of putting it into your answer. Just like so. So I've put cryptic suggests that face mites are like a puzzle scientists are yet to solve. We've got our word choice, suggests, we've got our connotation, so cryptic suggests that it's like a puzzle, and we've linked it back to the question with scientists are yet to solve. So you'd get 1 mark for cryptic because that's your word choice, and you get 1 mark for the rest of it. Face mites are like a puzzle scientists are yet to solve. But that's 2 marks. Our question's worth 4 marks, so we need to repeat the process again. So I've put strange beasts suggest that face mites are like mythical creatures we know very little about. Okay, so we get 1 mark for strange beasts, 1 mark for the idea that they're like mythical creatures, and that's 4 marks in total. So that's how you would get your marks for that question. Remember to check how many examples of word choice it is looking for in the answer. Okay, we'll round this off with a few top tips then. So number 1, analyse, don't define. Okay, so this is an analysing question. We don't need to know what the meaning of the word is. Your marker already knows. You need to explain why the writer has used a particular word, why that word choice is effective. You are explaining and analysing, not defining. Number 2 then, write on the paper. Highlight and underline those words. It makes it so much easier to actually write down your answers. Number 3, when it comes to actually looking at how many words you have to quote, usually they are just looking for 1, sometimes 2, occasionally 3, very rarely will they ask for more than 4. Don't quote a whole sentence, you won't get the mark for it, even if you've picked the right word. Number 4 then, always check. Always check how many marks a question is worth. Always check that you've talked about the implications and the connotations rather than defining the word, and check that you've actually answered the question. Always link it back to the question. And lastly then, read. Now this seems pretty self-explanatory, but don't leave it to the last minute. Read what you can now. I'll tell you why this is important. Your marker is going to assume a certain level of knowledge. Okay, so quite often they will assume that you will associate certain connotations with certain words. So I've had this problem before with words like slender. Slender means sort of thin but in a quite elegant way. It does not mean creepy. Okay, it does not relate to Slender Man. They are going to assume that you will go with the former rather than the latter. Okay, so always read. Alright then, so that's the end of this video. Always do your best, work hard, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!